Marketing Monday is a lot to cover.
Let's go.
All right, so okay, connected video source. We're going live on the Book of Faces. All right, we're rocking and we're rolling.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Marketing Monday. It's your boys, Pat and Zach.
What's up, Pat?
Coming
How
to you
doing?
live. It is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It is Marketing Monday. It is Inauguration Day. It's all kinds of amazing things today, historical things happening, mainly Marketing Monday, but those things too. So, Zach in the building. How's it going? It is a new year, a new day, a new Monday. And dude, the markets, what are they going to do today, Zach?
I mean, the markets are going to be wild. I don't think they're open, Pat. I think it's Martin Luther King Day.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It's a national holiday.
But definitely there's a cold front going through the country, so everything's getting a little chilly. I think your inauguration's going to be indoors today for, I don't know if that's the first time in history, but it's definitely it's chilly out there today.
Do you think Florida. That it's just because it's cold, or you think it's just maybe also because just it's Trump?
Hey, I mean, didn't he claim to resolve global warming in his last?
Oh man, that guy, he's claimed to resolve a lot of things in his career, and I don't know that. I don't know. I'd have to look at a track record of what actually happened and what didn't. But one thing I do know is it's Marketing Monday. So what do we got on the hopper today?
Oh, well, there's a lot to be said for, just the day of today, a lot of things going on, but I think there's a lot, along the lines of just free speech and what we do as Americans. But some of the topics to cover of like interesting news over the past week. Drake sues his record label. Essentially there's a lot of editorial out there as to, and this was in the Wall Street Journal, the cancel culture. The real Mark Zuckerberg essentially reprogramming himself, repersonifying himself, bringing out a new identity. And then AI, big push at Google right now. And then there's the vertical video format that X will be pushing, and, a number of other players in the field, as we saw TikTok actually banned or off the jumping in on that vertical video bandwagon.
Yeah, I think your video's, speaking of video, really I think your video's frozen.
Record label. Yeah.
But it'll come back.
My video's frozen?
Yeah, it's being funny.
I can see myself.
I can see you. And by the way, you look great. It's just a still image of Zach right now. There you go.
Oh, there it goes.
Now you're back. So vertical video, and as someone who's a producer, and that's how I got discovered, was 30-second videos on Instagram way back in the day, 2016, 2017, by Gary Vee and Grant Cardone. Way before all you guys knew about Gary Vee and Grant Cardone, Pat was making them videos because Way
before you knew about Pat Hilton, right?
Way before you knew about Pat Hilton, he was making videos. I saw a digital revolution happening, and I knew I had a skill set that could help people. And I describe what I do as I'm just a wheel in your machine, because I think that so many people have so many great ideas and so many great knowledge sets. And I don't ever want to impose my views or my style on somebody else. I want to let them be creatively free, because that's how they're going to come out with and produce and record the best things that they can possibly do. And I think this is why record label, great example. Record labels like to try and fit you into this mold that they think will sell, instead of letting you be awesome at what you're doing and then making sure that that awesome thing sells. And I get it. They're a company, they're a corporation. We've been talking about this a lot because I'm recording some new music, and we were going through all the different ways to record guitar parts. And when people first heard Nirvana, Smells Like Teen Spirits guitar parts, and how they were recorded and how it was produced, everybody's brain kind of popped open. And then what happened was that band eventually hated that song because it got so commercial and so popular, and they were like, oh, that's not what we want. And you got to think about celebrating your audience. I think that we're in a day and age now where the old rock star mentality of back then in the early 90s has disintegrated, because what people really wanted was access. Saturday Night Live or this or that or the other thing, or MTV gave you access that you didn't previously have to any of these artists or their sound or their, opinions or how they felt or how the record was made. Now nobody cares, because you have all access passes to anybody now on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and all these things because of the vertical format. And it changed the way we do video, just like Nirvana changed the way that people record guitar parts.
Yeah, and you're saying that essentially you're going to have to be recording in multiple formats when you're actually recording, so that there's going to be vertical video as well as all video formats are still going to have respect in the game. It's just
totally
different aspects of the landscape. But let's get into these hot hitting topics.
Let's do it.
I mean, because basically with the Trump inauguration happening on Martin Luther King Day, which is a great day, represents a lot of freedom, civil rights, and everything America is great at, and everything America is great for. To go on to that, essentially we start off with another lawsuit about essentially freedom of speech, or just like representation or things that are said out there. So Drake sues his own record label, Universal, over this Kendrick Lamar song. Essentially, he does accuse Drake of some wrongdoing and some specific things. But growing up in the '90s with the Tupac, Biggie, like hip hop rivalry and the things that were exchanged and said, it was part of the game, right? It was rap, hip hop. This is Kendrick Lamar from Compton, and this is Drake coming from soap operas in Toronto. I mean, Drake might be playing the Ja Rule card, where 50 Cent got him canceled real quick doing things like this. So it's going to get interesting real quick. But, it's I don't think he's getting a lot of respect by suing his record label. Or he's going to get out there and get more exposure.
Surprised when you came on and you said that was the case before we started to go live. I was shocked by that. And which is part of the reason why I brought up that album, Nevermind, because when that album dropped, everything that was popular in the late 80s and early 90s was like Guns N' Roses, hair metal, Van Halen, this and that, money, women, cars, mansions,
Aerosmith.
all that kind of stuff. Right, Aerosmith. And then these bands come out and they look like they were scraped off of a street corner with torn clothing and whatnot. They're smashing on their guitars. There's not very many guitar solos, and they're singing about how angry and how they have no women in their life. And everybody loved it. And it was a cultural response that happened. There was this huge culture shift in the early 90s with Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Nirvana, and Alice in Chains.
Green Day. We didn't mention Green Day.
Green Day came a few years later, but yes, Green Day too. Green Day went 100% pop with it, and they ran with it, and they're a great band too. But there was a huge shift of, I am not happy, and I'm not what these guys are on the TV. I don't have any money. I don't have gold chains. I don't have this and that. And people resonated with that because it was how people really felt.
I mean, look, when I saw, I can't necessarily associate to where Kendrick Lamar is from, but he is going to be performing the Super Bowl. He does have, a lot of brand affiliation, a lot of association with people that have come up from, poverty or specific areas, the streets in America that fortunately I haven't been exposed to. But when he calls out Drake as being not like us, I mean, look, there's definitely a reason he's making the call out. And he, like I said, he's on the rise. He's one of the top performers right now of the hip hop culture of our time. And for Drake to get called out and sue his record label over it, it's just a sign of the times, man. It's like
he should have just let it slide.
He should have, maybe fought back a little bit.
Or take him up in the booth. Take it up in the booth, bro. The reason why I brought up those other bands is because there was a little bit of a feud between Guns N' Roses and the Kurt Cobain. They were kind of butting heads. He was like, those guys aren't even real rock stars. And it was like a big controversial thing. He's like, dude, those guys aren't real rock stars. They go up there and wear girl clothes.
I mean, look, Nirvana was definitely, they created a whole nother, area of our
Everything
culture that we had
changed.
never even seen.
And the reason why I brought it up is because
Seattle punk, right?
yeah,
Washington.
but we just don't see that kind of a culture shift anymore. Since I've been alive, I haven't seen a culture shift like that since I was a kid.
I mean, I do think that there's still rock stars that, look, Green Day is very interesting, right? Because they've actually taken a political stance with their ability to move music, and they're definitely, I would say, more of like a liberal positioned rock band.
They are.
It's interesting is Mark Zuckerberg, who we'll talk about later on, who's now moved completely right. Actually, I think he had Green Day at his wedding, and he is really good friends with Billy Joe. There was a picture of them the other day. But it's very interesting because, essentially Green Day, they stand for something. They haven't really flip-flopped, like a politician.
They always have.
Numerous directions. They've always stood for what they believe in. And I think when it comes to music and artistry and freedom of speech, they're going to have to start to cut some slack. Otherwise, the media and the media and public journalism is just not going to be able to do their job. So I think like the court system and where you find that fine line of like modern day poetry, music, getting messaging out there really has to find its place in society to where we can hear expression, especially as, we're going to, things are going to be rolling down from, filter perspective. And that we can see, both sides of a message or essentially what people are getting out there. It's a very interesting time.
Yeah. And I think that what we're seeing, the reason why I brought that up is because I think personally, over the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen a huge shift from taking that normal format that you used to watch your favorite music video as this format. And you still do, by the way, but it went like this. And people, artists especially, and what was my example? I had an example. Yeah. Lil Nas X. Now, people might not like him. I'm not like his biggest fan, but the guy marketed his song, The Dirt Road or whatever song, brilliantly. He took a clip of it and had a challenge on TikTok, and it went super bonkers viral. So now, and I love that you brought up Universal, because Universal is actually they work with NBC. NBC is Universal. And I didn't know this as a kid, but looking back on the Nirvana thing, there's a reason why I brought that up. I remember thinking to myself, how could a band like this become so commercial? And it's because they got signed to Geffen Records, which is a conglomerate of Universal, and Universal said, you're going to be on Saturday Night Live. And so they had the machine behind them. And as much as they didn't want to be corporate rock, they were corporate owned.
Hey, it gave them the roads, the path to get.
I'm glad they signed the deal, because we never would even be having this conversation potentially if the album didn't sound like a radio album. But my point is this: you have to figure out how to package your stuff in a way that gets people to buy it at a huge level. And when it comes to the Kendrick versus Drake thing, I don't know how well Kendrick has sold. I would guess not as well as Drake.
I mean, look, the fact is that there's a different path to, financial freedom
Correct.
as an artist these days, right?
Correct.
It's not necessarily going out and selling a bunch of albums.
No way. That time is gone.
Things, performing live shows, which, is awesome as a fan. Like, we all want to see more live performances. Yeah, that's great. Endorsing products and, definitely having a live social feed and being able to utilize that, to get their message out there. Performing the Super Bowl show, I'm sure definitely has
totally
a nice
huge.
It's Kendrick Lamar's got that and a lot of exposure, and there are ways of getting paid per play. So, long story short, I'd love to see him battle it out. I do too. The art form, not necessarily the courtroom, but I guess
that was my point.
Drake might see his career going like this and be like, I'm going for one last grasp, because he's going to burn his record label and he's going to, kind of
like smart to sue your own guys.
Like, hey, man, what's that?
Suing your own guys. I don't get that.
No, I don't get it either.
I don't get that one. Drizzy. I don't get it, bro. Why are you suing your own guys, man? They're on your side. He should have sent some kind of message to an executive or a whatever and said, hey, what's going on here?
He could have recorded a response. He could have recorded a response and gone back at it. But, it's like I said, 50 destroyed Ja Rule. We'll see how quickly Kendrick Lamar
Bro,
destroys Drake. I
50
think it might happen quicker
crushed
than you think.
Ja Rule. Poor Ja Rule was out there selling tickets to some festival that never happened after that one. Was that the Fire Fest or whatever? Poor Ja Rule, man.
We'll see, because
but yeah,
that
I think
that Super Bowl show is coming up too. It's going to be the next couple of weeks, so
I love it.
Drake couldn't have laid out a better headline for himself and a more ripe stage for Kendrick Lamar to
Right.
take a shot than in the biggest game in America. So it's going to
Yeah.
be coming up real quick. It's going to be interesting
Well,
to see
and
if he
that's the
takes a
thing.
shot.
There's been a culture shift, major podcasting culture shift, major musical
Yeah.
culture shifts, and the mobile phone revolutionized media and how we consume it. I mean, your Google Maps. I used to have to use
Yeah.
MapQuest when I was touring around the country with a guitar. We didn't know where the hell we were going in Houston. I remember, if you're in a Houston, Texas person, there's some kind of loop in Houston. It's like the highway goes in like a loop. It's probably called loop. I remember
the
being
loop.
stuck on that loop for like I just couldn't get off it. I'm like, how do I
It's
get
quite a loop.
out of this town?
Yep.
I had to stop at a gas station and show the guy the MapQuest directions. I'm like, dude, we're trying to get out of here. Can you help me get to Phoenix? And he was like, yeah, dude. He's like, everybody misses the turn. It's like right there. And so he showed me where to go, but it was just kind of funny. But that was back in the day when you had to have Universal and you had to have NBC, and you don't anymore.
I mean,
You
look,
just don't.
there's still a lot of things to be gained from working with organizations
Oh,
like
I totally agree.
and definitely getting on their radar or like allow
That was what I was going to
partnering their
say.
path.
That
You
was what
gotta
I was
get-
going to say.
As much as we say about specific numbers and the shift, there's a lot of numbers and eyes that traditional media still controls,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of people in society. I was going to say trolls, but people that like talk, they hate or they fan. There's haters and there's fans, right? And they're usually the biggest amplifiers of any direction of a message.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at some of those big media companies, they associate with a lot of them on both sides of the spectrum. And those are the ones that are exponentially moving messages in our society. So, if you're saying things to get hyped and get in position with some of those, the polarization of the society, it's going to move a brand, for better or for worse in a lot
Totally.
of different ways.
Totally. And I think that now, the reason why I brought that up is you don't necessarily need them to get started, but you can definitely use them to pop off. Because,
for sure.
I mean, let's face the facts. If we record this record this year and I get some kind of message from Geffen Records and they say, hey, we want to take X amount of a percent and this and this and this, and we're going to publish your stuff all over, and you're going to be on Lollapalooza. What the hell do you think I'm going to say, Zach?
You're all in. Definitely. What are you alluding to? Are you working on a record over there?
Yeah, we have a 10-song album coming out. The new Pat Hilton album is coming out this year. Absolutely.
Nice.
And it's so funny because now you play the guitar into the computer and you can just click on Alice in Chains amp or Nirvana's amp or Rage Against the Machine's amp. It's not like it used to be where you had to like put microphones into the speaker to like get the core of the bottom end. No, dude. You just plug right into the computer and then you click a button and it sounds just like them.
If you
Isn't
remember
that
the one-
crazy?
That is crazy. The one-man band of our time, what was his name? Beck?
Beck, yeah, he's good. That guy's a hell of a
he's great.
writer.
And he's had a hell of a career in music.
He has.
To keep moving through, some of these topics of just, what we're seeing, and just published content out there. So the cancelization of the cancel culture. I mean, you're going to see a big shift here. Essentially what's also interesting is there's a lot of lawsuits happening over, essentially what, some would deem free speech or the press or media attempting to cover information. You've had a lot of big name lawsuits where that's actually been happening, including this Drake lawsuit. There was also Trump against Stephanopoulos for, making a misquote on some allegations. And then you also had the Dominion voting systems where they essentially went up against Fox, for essentially, questioning the voting system. But all of this is very dangerous waters as we start to move forward because, essentially, if people can't be publicly, utilizing free speech and essentially taking a media position, you're going to lose some investigative journalism. You're going to lose some of that freedom of the press. We saw it a little bit earlier in the first Trump administration, and going into this second hurrah, it's going to be interesting as to where this fine line is of actual like media journalism, investigative reporting, and just free speech as a whole and not being sued over what you might say.
Yeah. And I think that for podcasters or for independent artists or for people that want to record music, the reason why I brought all that up is because now you can, Dave Grohl from Foo Fighters, who by the way was the original drummer for Nirvana. I'm sure you know that, but if you don't, there's a little music history for you folks. He's been the singer and guitar player for that band forever. They record and track all their stuff in their own studios. They produce it, they mix it and everything. And they have a distribution deal with Sony BMG. So they have a record deal, but they produce all their own records, keep all the creative. That's pretty cool. And that's also rare. He's obviously got a history in the industry of producing very, very, very overly successful stuff. But how do people get to a point where they get good enough to where they kind of get syndicated or distributed by the big companies, but they bring their own product? I think we're going to see a lot more of this.
I mean, look, you're definitely, look, Trump did it. He had his own TV show on NBC before, all this, you're fired. What was that? The Apprentice?
Yeah.
He had that show.
It should have just been called You're Fired.
It should have just been called You're Fired. But, he had numerous seasons on NBC. The left, he was definitely, as a politician, he's gone both sides of the table essentially throughout his career. And you're definitely going to it's going to be interesting, but like the utilization of the mainstream to get your message out there. Yeah, it's getting enough ears or getting enough eyes.
It's a factor.
It's definitely, look, once somebody starts to gain like massive, waves, then I think we said it, a couple of weeks ago or a week ago where I said, I'm in South Florida. You always grew up that you don't swim against the tide, so it's like, got to kind of swim with that current. Essentially, you create enough of a current, enough of a wave, there's going to be some people that jump on and try to surf, and get along for the ride, which, takes me to my next, topic here, the real Mark Zuckerberg. You're essentially seeing another shift, another rebrand. The reason I say surfing is he just published himself a video surfing some waves on a hydrofoil, I think the other day.
Did he really?
Yeah, and
I'm gonna go find it.
You're looking it up there.
Yeah.
So essentially, Zuckerberg's creating that new rebrand. You see a lot of personas out there that create like PR push and this evolution. What's the song he's surfing to? There's some symbolism to the song he's surfing to. What's the name of the song? It's the name of the song. Pretty sure. I think it says something about
it looks like it's a song called Left Hand Free by Alt J.
There you go. I don't think he chose that song by random, but Left Hand Free.
Well, and that's the cool thing again about, this is another great example of what we were just talking about. You can literally use people's famous songs on your Instagram and the copyright owner gets paid. You can do it on YouTube too. That's crazy. That is historical. And again, all because of these vertical, like these share videos that people are making. I'm telling you, you guys, if you're not making vertical videos, one of the main reasons why we do the show, one of them is so we can get great clips. The format of the way that we do this allows us to kind of fire off a little better and make it really, really natural and not scripted and not staged, which I think people are enjoying. But number two, it allows us to get these clips. And it allows us to stay super consistent, and it allows us to take what we talk about and distribute it to you daily, right to your fingertips, and bring you value. I think that it's, again, culturally speaking, there hasn't been a media shift like this, horizontal to vertical, in a really, really, really long time.
Well, that's on a
It's historical
perspective. Yeah, I mean, definitely that's the technical, how the artistry gets done. But the shift that we're seeing from a messaging perspective and Zuckerberg's left hand being free, him coming out and blaming Sheryl Sandberg for the ultimate filters of Facebook and Instagram, and essentially saying that now he's, kind of like even keeled or leaning a little bit more to the right. It's going to be interesting to see, they say that he has taken the playbook from Elon Musk, essentially, they're saying that Musk had a little bit more like risk with it because people weren't as tied as Twitter to X for advertising as they are to Facebook and Instagram. So the Zook has a little bit more freedom as to how far he can push this. But it is very interesting to see him taking such a strong stance and position as a persona and creating this brand and, around this figure, the real Zuckerberg. Because, it's there's just been, MySpace, everybody's favorite first friend was Tom. He definitely he kept to, real conservative and just he doesn't really have a political message out there. But as Zook continues to be this conquistador and wants to conquer more and more, he's taking this political position and he's reinventing himself, which, we'll talk to clients about reinventing their persona or even creating a position for their persona, not necessarily as extreme as what you see going on with some of these, tech, tech leaders, but essentially, creating a path, creating a persona and creating an image is definitely in the playbook of public relations and marketing and advertising. And what's interesting that we see today is companies and organizations are very much tied to the principles can really have an impact. There's a lot of people that I think are like demyth, or I don't know exactly how you say it, but like there's a lot of people that have this like this mythical belief of entrepreneurialism where it's like you create a business, you're going to be free to have your own hours and do your own thing. The reality is you become the blueprint, the DNA of your organization, your company. And I assure you, the guys that make it to these extreme levels are out there working, they're out there networking, and they're out there getting their business to the next level. I mean, there's so many, like from Mark Benoff at Salesforce to Elon Musk at Tesla and SpaceX. I mean, all these guys can go sail into the night, but there's something deeper to it, and they want to keep pushing to that next level. Jeff Bezos, he's not retired. It's just not healthy for the mind. They need to keep pursuing and evolving their organizations, their companies, to be the leaders of tomorrow. And I think it's awesome to watch them, continue to sharpen their axe.
It's awesome, dude. They're the best. And I think that again, we're witnessing, just major shifts in the way that business is done, in the way that communication happens, and in the way that someone can become a global sensation almost overnight with very little investment on the front end. And I mean, if you got the back end set up, I mean, wow, you can capitalize big time on eyeballs. And I think that even with the Hawk Tuah thing, I remember we were talking about how big Hawk Tuah girl had gotten, and then she came out with some meme coin or something and blew it all, correct?
Yeah, I mean,
did you hear about that?
Herself real quick, but there's definitely, I mean, look, there's a lot of propaganda and PR positioning that gets people to the next level. She could come back and reinvent herself, if she plays her cards right. But definitely, there's a lot of people that don't know about the meme coin thing. If she just continues to blaze her path, that's what I find very interesting about media today. Whereas, Google results could be solidified and really were hard to shake in a lot of situations. Whereas, over the past few years, it's really just been a constant momentum shift of content and information will essentially repolish or position your brand and your media as to where you want it to go.
Yep.
So I always highly encourage clients to get information and content out there and do it on a frequency basis, because you want to build that moat and you want to build that, essential like messaging of who your organization is and what you represent.
And you want to make yourself available. I think one of the things that people struggle with, and again, I come from the music game, so it's like the hardest thing to do, no matter how good you are, is to just get people to see it and hear it.
You
And
know, it's no,
nowadays it's like you've got a better shot, but nowadays there's way more competition than there's ever been.
hey man, it's humanizing, right? We're still dealing with humans. We're still,
Hmm.
it's like it's professional sports. As a kid, I grew up going to a lot of Major League Baseball games, and yeah, half of the fun was showing up early to get autographs and
Right.
to, mess with the players and have a good time and get out there and get a baseball or two and interact, and that's when you humanize and you interact, you create fans and you create fans for a lifetime. It impresses upon
Mm.
people at a young age and it carries through. I think that's part of why you see some polarization in society is people are positioning themselves as, some form of elite and that they don't even want to like associate with specific people. That's a bunch of BS in my book. And
Hmm.
essentially, you got to be a man of the people, or
You
a woman of
do.
the people. You
Well,
have to.
hey, that's your boy Morgan and Morgan for the people, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's a man of the people. He's humble and he's out there and he's still getting his message out there. He could have sailed into the night a long time ago, whereas, we do see some, firm owners that want to be invisible. The reality is you can't become invisible and be great.
Mm.
There's no invisibility to greatness. Trump is still out there working and he's working the hardest job in the world right now. So, if he ain't hanging up his hat, there's a lot to be said for putting your persona out there and continuing to be a man of the people.
That's
Just as you
awesome.
said, John Morgan is. It's critical in building a big brand in a big business that's going to carry forward
Well,
for
and that's
sure.
why everybody knows who they are.
Well, to take a leap here, let's move from people to AI
Okay.
because we talk a lot about how, AI still can't really function without, people, but there's an interesting battle here in the tech world right now for the AI landscape, and a lot of people are, I think, designating it as the chatbot world.
Mm.
Whereas personally, as an AI user, I don't see ChatGPT as a chatbot. I mean, I see it as like a problem solver. Like there's a lot of other like adjectives or like ways to like describe the power of what AI is doing. I guess when you were, essentially branding a search engine, you would brand it as a search engine. But I think to brand AI as a chatbot function, when I think chatbot, I think like you go to a website or you're in Facebook Messenger and something starts chatting with you. That's a chatbot.
Right.
When you're talking GPT and Claude, I think you're talking like problem solver, time collapser, you know, get you to the next level quicker. There's a lot of ways and things that I don't think we found a word to describe the power of what, powerful AI can really do. And it's not a one-stop shop. Like there's multiple layers, as we've talked about, to AI in every industry and vertical.
It's unbelievable. I mean, for us, AI, we were talking about this earlier. It's great for like hooks and stuff like that, but for bullet points and knowledge to fill in between, if AI is able to give you a catchy hook, let's say we're trying to talk to, I don't know. Let's say we're trying to talk to real estate investors that need daily social media posts, right? So
Mhm.
it could give me some cute little hooks to kind of grab their attention, but I still have to have the in between knowledge to fill in that middle section of a video script because AI doesn't
Yeah.
know how to talk to those people. It's
Yeah.
either too
AI.
wordy or too much like it doesn't sound like me. And I think that people can pick up on that. And Neil Patel, and I said this before on the show, Neil Patel has done research with Patel Digital and said that, I mean, out of thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of posts that they've researched, the human posts on the internet, video wise, copywriting wise, text wise, whatever, outperformed the AI.
I think definitely, but the AI probably might have essentially helped with the initial scripting
Totally.
of it. And then
Totally.
the human came through and filtered and evolved it. I
It's all
mean,
about how you use it.
I did a photo shoot like a photo video shoot when I was up in New York City, and I was sitting there, coming up with ideas of places to go and check out. And I was like, you know what? Let me just throw this in GPT and say, hey, what are some great spots to go film some media content out in
Mm,
Manhattan? And it gave me great ideas
yep.
in a matter of seconds. And then from there, I went, printed it out, and then filtered that list down, added a few places that I liked that it missed, and essentially went on my way. And
Amazing.
it saved me hours of work.
It's worth 20
And
bucks.
I don't think it's about the 20 bucks. I don't think it's going to be about the 20 bucks.
No.
Essentially, at these stages, there's a lot of AI out there that's priceless. That's worth thousands of
Oh,
bucks a month,
totally.
They're giving it away at 20 bucks, but it's like essentially like access to the internet. Remember when that was 20 bucks
Oh,
and charged you by
man.
the minute at America Online? Or
It'd be
maybe
like
I'm just aging myself. America Online, Prodigy, that was like a business model. Charge you a flat rate for the month, give you a set of minutes, and then
little
charge you an
Netscape
additional.
navigator.
Oh yeah, man.
Little
Internet
Netscape.
Explorer, way back. I think we're aging ourselves
Is
talking
is
about.
Internet Explorer still around? Do they still use it?
I think it's called Edge right now. I think
Oh,
that, it's
Microsoft Edge. I actually
yeah,
like that better. I like that better. But yeah, I mean, again, these tools were around. I remember when you could first read a blog about pro wrestling, and we'd go read the blogs and stuff like that. I mean, we're goofball kids. There's so much more opportunity now for people. The access is there. Back in the day, like I said, people would pay for the access. Now you can give people unlimited access for a price, and you can charge for that. And I think that, especially when it comes to media, whether it's music or podcasting or content or streaming or gaming or whatever you want to be known for, business,
Yep.
you give it away for free now, and then you sell something on the back end. Like you
Well,
said, a
yeah.
performance or a call or consulting or a mastermind or a service or a product or whatever, but you give something away first. And again, this all still kind of goes back to music industry days where we're going to let you listen to the free single. We're going to put the single up on MTV. We're going to put it all over the radio to create a fan base, and they're going to buy the record, buy the poster, buy the tour,
Yep.
buy this, buy that, buy the other thing. And once that became digital, it was like, oh, great. Well, now what do we do? Well, you got to be more than just a guitar, man. 50 Cent made $1 gazillion on vitamin water. He made more money on vitamin water than he did rapping. But that
For sure.
brand recognition of 50 Cent, everybody knows 50 Cent. When he was on the Into Club music video, he was in incredible shape in that video when he first
He
came
still
out.
is.
He is, yeah.
But definitely, I think in the Super Bowl a year or two ago, he reenacted that upside down sit-up he did or whatever it was. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, dude.
But
I mean, it's great.
essentially, it's just as people have access to information, they have access to those audiences, right? It's like being a creator, publishing content, getting out there. Just as much as people have access to content and information to create their own content, you also have access to audiences to digest your content and
Right.
become, fans or essentially, clients or customers because they're out there digesting and engaging with different information. So it's like you mentioned wrestling content. You can find wrestling fans and audiences with a simple hashtag or essentially, posting something into their boards. You didn't have that access when the internet first
Nope.
started. And what we see as social media today is going to be renamed something else. I mean, what you see as how digital tech and digital media is evolving, I would say all these like silos are just essentially merging, and there's a lot of interaction, there's a lot of engagement, and there's a lot of different organizations that kind of just stay their path, but essentially have huge audiences and huge potential for content creators to get out there and start publishing.
And I think that what has also happened, I think you've made a really great point there, like Facebook groups and chat, what used to be a chat room has become like groups or communities or X or Y or Z. And they're so accessible now from your fingertips where back in the day, again, the only people that had that kind of a broad audience access was people that had access to the radio stations or the TV channels or this or that.
Oh, yeah.
But social media, once again, has opened that up. Doesn't mean the TV or radio doesn't work. It just depends on what you're marketing.
Correct. Correct.
I wouldn't
And
market my social media company on the radio ever, but I might market my song on the radio.
for sure. And hope they get into the Billboard 100.
Yeah, you're damn right. Number one.
Number one. But there's definitely, it's interesting because we used to have to like wait for a certain time of day to like digest or consume like media or see like the headlines come to life.
Yeah.
But essentially, people are very seen the content or information way ahead of the main broadcast. I look to the main broadcast sometimes to see unique content or specific video and information that might not be readily available on the internet or a contributor or on some freelance media site. Some of the main, media outlets do get access to specific like Getty images, Getty video, or specific content that others might not be able to get. And that's, part of the beauty of just the different levels of production and different levels of syndication that we still see today.
It's awesome. And anybody out there that's watching, I mean, get your phone out this week. Make a little 15, 20-second video talking to the camera about who you are, what you do, and why it's important for people to be utilizing what you do in their business or in life. Maybe you clean up people's closets and you're really good at helping people get their closets organized. Well, film a dirty closet and then film what it looks like after you cleaned the closet. I think I agree with Gary Vee on this. There is a business model and a passion business model for almost anything on the planet.
Oh, anything. I mean, look, there's people that are putting their own followings just on being a better parent, or just like, and they purely like love parenting, and that's, what they want to coach and assist people with, or just different aspects of life. There's a lot of, there's huge markets for life coaching and just, being somebody's cheerleader in the corner and just like making sure they get to the next level with what they're trying to do. Publishing and creating content is one of the most critical factors of what you could be doing to start to garner impressions to build your brand in today's media.
And it's also, it lasts forever. When you put something up on the internet, it lasts forever. And we're going to continue throughout this year to touch on the topics that people are talking about. The Kendrick Lamars and the Drakes, or the Trumps and the Elons, or the Zuckerbergs and the whatevers. And I think that it's so important for us to kind of infuse too, like what we like and stuff like that. I did that earlier. I remember growing up and just hearing this loud, smashing music, and it changed who I was because it was how I actually felt. And I think that if you can hit people where they actually feel it, you're not only going to help that person become better in their everyday life, but you're going to have a staying power with those people, whether they buy anything from you or not. That's how you create an audience and a following now, is by really impacting people in a way that when they're not listening to you or your music or your podcast or watching you on your gaming stream or not watching you talk about business, they're actually better because they've heard you or seen you or felt you, and it's made them better every day. Because people are going through a lot of stuff, man. They always have been. And your ability to connect with that emotion and meet the audience member or that person on their level is so hard to do sometimes, but it's also so simple because it's like...
Oh, yeah. And if there's haters out there, just scrap them. I mean, just keep moving forward and just, reprogram what you're hearing and the people that are influencing you. If there's somebody discouraging you or talking smack about your first path forward or what you're trying to do, essentially, reprogram who you surround yourself with and just keep moving forward. That's the most important factors. I mean, that's critical in life and getting to the next level, because at the next level, it always gets thinner. There's not a lot of people
I'm looking at your
to get there.
I'm looking at your page here of these reels that we post, and they all consistently do pretty well, probably above average. And over the last few weeks, you've had a couple of them pop. That Morgan and Morgan one's got 217,000 views on Instagram.
But it's true messaging. I mean, look, they humbled themselves. They communicate with their audience, and they're down, they connect down to earth in a lot of ways. And that is hard to compete with. That is hard to compete with, a competitor that's out there, not necessarily like, telling you something to just sell you something. Mm-hmm. They're out there to connect with you and humanize the connection and get out there with the messaging that's actually going to help you move yourself to the next level, not moving their agenda. Part of it's their agenda, but it's more important for them to communicate with you as a person and be like, hey, that's someone I'd be interested in having a beer with. When I watched a Matthew McConaughey podcast recently, he goes, at the end of the day, I just want to be that guy that you'd like to have a beer with. So it's there's a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of truth. It's simple at the end of the day.
You were talking about people coming into the comments, and the Morgan and Morgan people were so awesome in the comments. They loved what we posted. And then there were a couple other videos where we got a little friction from a couple clowns, and successful people don't respond like those clowns did. Successful people come in, they say, hey, thanks for the share. Hey, great video, dude. Looks like you guys are doing some cool stuff on the podcast. I have never in my life, and by the way, I've played some big, huge business conferences, people that don't know me. When I was a guitar player making $100 in the corner, I played some huge business conferences in front of 10,000 people and stuff. And I never ever met a millionaire or a billionaire in any of those scenarios that told me I sucked, or I didn't have any talent, or my ideas weren't going to work, or that I was riffraff or whatever. They just said, hey man, if you structure your offer like this, it's going to help you make a whole lot more moves in business outside of just being a performer. And that's what you really want, right? As a business. Yeah. So then do this. And I did it and it worked. So I've never met someone that was successful or that did a lot of revenue or that was a successful consultant or coach diss somebody that is out there making an effort to be successful.
Oh, for sure. Look, the beauty of, in just even coming up as an entrepreneur is having mentors is very important, right? So, even in today's society, like even if you can't reach a Gary Vee, like you can go study him as if he's mentoring you and literally watch all of his videos and start from his early content to see how his messaging or level of production has evolved from where he was, 10 years ago, and let that tell the story for how you carry yourself forward. But yeah, there's just, this is a very big day today as to I think what we're going to see with, just evolution in media and messaging as we go forward. And, it's gonna be great, man.
Yeah, today's a crazy big day. I'm looking forward to it. What else we got on the hopper? Anything else on the list?
No, it's just, Martin Luther King Day is very important. It's a huge day in American society, and definitely as long as we all remember our history and can learn from it and move forward, I think those are just some important lessons. Like as we continue to see information and content come out there, just remember where everybody's come from, and that we don't repeat, the bad things that have happened in the past. And I just hope that, as we go forward here, these next 4 years, it's like Dave Chappelle even said, it's your second run at it. Let's learn from what we did and just make it a little bit, let's just make it better, man. Because whether people like you or not, they're counting on you. And that's
I loved that. I loved that. And that was the way I always think about a president that comes in. It's the same thing, I think. Because, and I said this before, man, I did better. I caught my stride there towards the end of the Trump presidency and had a great 4 years during the Biden presidency. That might shock some people, but I've never done better than I've done right now. And I think it's because that has zero effect on your ability to create success, whether it's Trump or Biden or Clinton or Bush or Reagan or whoever. A lot of that stuff, it's right here that's going to make you successful. It's right here and it's right here.
I don't know about you, but one of my favorite songs of all time is Michael Jackson's "Man in the Mirror."
Great song.
Really, it's the man in the mirror that, creates your destiny and your path forward. Not anybody around you, not anybody behind you, and not surely anybody behind you. But
for sure, nobody behind you.
Those you surround yourself, and it's the man in the mirror that's going to create your destiny and your path forward. So when you're looking at, that person in the mirror, man, woman, that's the important thing is, it's who you're looking at in the mirror to create your destiny and your path forward. And you can always make it, better and take it to the next level.
I love it. I love it. Write those goals down. Get yourself on camera. Go out there and make your dreams happen. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Social Authority Marketing Monday. Pat Hilton and Zach Hoffman in the house. We love you. We hope you love it because we love you. And we will be back next week with another episode.
Sure. For sure. Thank you. Thanks, Pat. Definitely have an awesome week. We'll be talking.
We'll see y'all on the next one.
Yeah. Bye.